All right, you guys, welcome back to Get Out of Debt for Good. Lesson 8, Expense Management, Essential Expenses. We're about to talk about some of those really essential expenses like housing, transportation, clothing, utilities, all of those things so that you can figure out how to manage them, minimize them, still live a good life, and get out of debt. So let's talk about all of those really annoying, those topics that nobody really likes talking about. Let's do it. I hope you're ready. Here we go. So before you start this lesson, you should have a few things. You should have a meal plan that uses sales, deals, and lowers the cost of your food. You should have a lower grocery budget as a result. And you should also have a designated eat this next shelf in your fridge and pantry cabinets. Okay. Please remember, I know you know this. Please remember to take any questions to your group financial coaching sessions. You get 2 per month for the 6-month subscription. And I really want to see you there. It helps. It helps. At this point, you have a better budget. You have a meal plan. You have an eat this next shelf or 2 and a renewed sense of focus. You are trying so hard to get your costs down so that you can get out of debt. You know how to shop grocery deals and stop wasting food. Now it's time to stop wasting money in the rest of your budget. But first, celebrate your success. You've come a long way. You're in lesson 8 and you've been changing your life. I'm proud of you. I really am. I can't wait to hear your successes in group coaching. Let's look at your budget. Specifically, let's look at those expenses you think you can't change. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with clients and they tell me that their budget is maxed out. They can't change anything else. They're going to be in the negative all the time. Unless they cut out every single thing that they love, they're going to be in the negative and nothing can change. They think they're stuck. Well, when you're stuck, and even when you're not, when you're stuck, we should look at the ones that don't change easily, the categories that don't change easily. Specifically, we're going to be looking at housing, utilities, your car or transportation costs, and clothing. And I want to prepare you right now. I'm about to say things that could be considered controversial because I'm asking people to downgrade their lives. If you want to change your life, you have to actually change your life. If you're trying to get ahead, but you look at your budget and you don't see any extras to give up, this lesson is for you. There's probably something with your necessary expenses that has to change or that can change to allow you to get ahead. Please keep an open mind as we get through this. Please, I'm not going to tell you to move. I know what housing costs these days. Okay, really, I do. I work with people all day. So I just want to say, please don't think you know what I'm going to say. I do work with people all day. I do see their budgets all day. And sometimes working with people to get out of debt includes changing the cost of housing, but not all the time. So let's go through how to know whether you should be changing your housing or not. Housing, here's your benchmark. Housing should be no more than 25% of your income. That doesn't include utilities. That 25% is either your mortgage, insurance, and taxes. So that's usually all wrapped up in your mortgage payment, usually not all the time. Or it's your rent and rental insurance. So let's go through an example here. Brenda takes home $4,300 a month, take home pay. She rents a 2-bedroom apartment for $2,000 a month. Now, you might be sitting there where you are right now saying, that's crazy. That sounds so high. That's low where I live. So I'm giving you just an average, a normal cost for renting a 2-bedroom apartment. And I don't mean a cost in a high cost of living area. I mean just a normal cost in like a medium cost of living area. So if it's less than that where you are, you're in a low cost of living area. Okay, but coming back to this, $2,000 divided by 4,300, her take-home pay, equals 4.465. You take that number, you multiply it by 100, and then you get the percentage, what the percentage of her take-home pay is. So I remember how we said 25%. Well, this is 46.5%. It's a lot more. That's way more than she should be spending. A lot more than she should be spending, almost double. 25% of Brenda's income is $1,075. So what does she do? When I talk to people about this, people usually balk. You know, they'll tell me that they can't possibly decrease their rent by half. It's impossible. Have I seen rent prices and housing prices these days? Yes, I have. So let's talk through the options. First, let's talk about what Brenda's giving up to live how she's living. First thing, she's giving up retirement, but that doesn't feel important right now. It's far away for her, so she doesn't feel that. Second, she's giving up flexibility, but that also doesn't seem too urgent for her. She likes what she does. So why is that a problem, right? Why is it a problem? Third, she's giving up an emergency fund. Well, now we're getting into her sense of security. Brenda doesn't have much security in her finances because she chose to spend $2,000 per month on rent. Third or fourth thing she's giving up is travel and fun. Brenda doesn't have much room in her budget for travel and fun. She has $2,300 left for all of her other bills, debts, and expenses. Good luck, Brenda. The credit card debt isn't worth it, okay? She's also giving up comfort. There's a little known fact that housekeepers really aren't that expensive. Hiring a housekeeper once a month provides a huge sense of comfort and joy. Brenda can't afford one, so she has to scrub her tub, and nobody likes that. Okay, except for maybe housekeepers. So Brenda is giving up a lot by choosing to live in a place that costs her $2,000 a month. So what are her options? Well, she could move. That's the obvious one, but good luck finding rent for $1,075 per month for a one-bedroom apartment. If she's in a market where a two-bedroom apartment is costing $2,000 a month, she's not going to find that. She could be a roommate, or, you know, she could find a situation that needs roommates, who needs an extra person to go in on a house. She could find a roommate herself, take that second bedroom and invite a roommate to join the household. She could ask to rent a room, find a family with an extra room and ask to rent a room. So it's kind of like that second situation, except she's just like finding a family and deciding or asking to move in with them. So it's not even looking for people who are actively looking for a place or looking for a roommate. It's people who have an extra bedroom in their home and they're not doing anything with it. You could also ask a church if they know of anyone. I've seen many people save a ton of money this way. It's one of my number one things to say is go ask your church if there's anybody in the church who has an extra bedroom that you can rent. I mean, she could get that for less than $1,000 a month. Or she could stay in her apartment and increase her income. That's the choice most people try to make, by the way, but it's the least, because it's the least friction in your life. Most people will either find another full-time job, try to get promoted or negotiate a raise, or work more overtime. None of those things are bad. None of them. I actually have a whole course coming out about that. But they're also usually not immediate. We need to think about ways to change her immediate situation. Now, just as a side note, we cover short-term income ideas to jumpstart the steps to financial freedom in another lesson. If you haven't made it there yet, then it might be a good time to blaze through this lesson and get there, or jump ahead like we talked about early on in this course. Also, I did want to let you know that staying and increasing your income, that usually takes months or even years. It's not as in control. You're not in control of your income as much as you are lowering your expenses. You can control where you live and how much it costs a lot easier than controlling how much you make. So I'll just leave that there. So Brenda has some good options there as a single person. But what if she has kids? And this, I talk to single parents, I talk to married people with kids all the time that are in an odd situation like this or a terrible situation like this. It's more common than you think. If you have kids, your housing options can get a lot more complicated. Often I'll talk to people who have partial or full custody of their kids. So they have to stay in their town and they're worried about having a less than stellar living environment. You know what? Let me tell you a story. My parents, this one's a personal one. My parents separated when I was 14. CPS was involved. I won't go into all the details, but it was long and messy and there were lots of legal bills and fighting. It took 4 to 5 years to get custody sorted out. With a guardian ad litem in the mix, for those of you who know what that is, I'm sorry. But for those of us who have experienced it, there's a little bit of a kindred spirit there. Social services was interviewing the kids, of which I was one of them. You'd think my parents would be concerned about the living conditions of their kids. There were 5 of us all involved in this. We came from a pretty large house. It was a 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath, I think it was. But that's not what my dad could afford anymore. My mom kept the house during the separation. My dad moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. When we visited, 2 kids slept in the second really small bedroom. It only fit 2 beds. It was that small. 2 kids slept in the living room, one on a pull-out couch and the other one on an inflatable mattress. And my youngest sibling, who was 5 when all of this started, he slept on a mattress in my dad's room. My dad himself slept on an inflatable mattress for like over 2 years. Okay. Over 2 years, he was sleeping on an air mattress. But you know what? Those were the best years. We grew closer as a family. I loved being there. Over the summer, we stayed there around like 98, 99% of the time. You know what CPS saw? A family that was staying together, staying positive, loving each other, helping each other, and making it work. They saw a family that wanted to spend time together. They saw health and the well-being of each kid increase as we were there. It was a healthy place to be. It was okay. It was great. Now, I'm not in a position to give legal advice. I'm not here for that. That's not what we're discussing. This isn't legal advice. This is just my personal experience. But I do want to say, don't discount downsizing because you have kids. Often, and I experience this, it's good for your kids to see what you'll go through to get ahead financially and make ends meet. It really made me see the value in $1. I was a teenager. You'd think that as a teenager, I'd be moody and contrary. No, you know what this whole situation made me do? Come together, want to help my family. It helped us all get along together. It was the best thing for us. And it made me as an adult be a little bit more responsible with my money because I saw what could happen. Okay. So what are Brenda's options if she has kids? She could move, find a lower cost option like we just talked about, like my dad did. She could share a house with another single parent. I've seen single parents do that. They find another single parent that they get along with well, and they share a house and all their kids all live together. She could find a roommate that she trusts, and she could stay and increase her income. Those are her 4 options. So I want to ask you, what percentage of your income are your housing costs? You listening to this now. To figure out what your housing costs are, add up your rent and renter's insurance or your mortgage, including your home insurance or your homeowner's insurance and your property taxes, whichever you pay for, whether it's rent or mortgage, and divide that by your take-home pay. That's your monthly take-home after taxes and benefits, okay? So income here is your monthly take home after taxes and benefits. If you're self-employed or you're a 1099 employee, then take taxes and health insurance out of your income first, okay? Then multiply that decimal because you'll get something under 100 or under 1. Multiply that by 100 and you'll get a percentage. So here's just one example, right? Mortgage, including property taxes and insurance, over income, subtracting taxes and benefits and health insurance. And then another one, rent, if you're renting, rent and renter's insurance. And we have, by the way, we have a whole video on insurance and like a lot of bonus videos on that one. And then over your take-home pay. Okay. So if your housing is over 25% of your income, strongly consider changing your living situation. And guys, if you have questions or you want to talk through options for you, come to the group coaching Zooms. Let's discuss. This is a hot topic, if you've probably seen already, if you've been coming to the calls. Okay. Let's move on. Talk about utilities. Sometimes utilities can get out of control. I'm sure you've seen it. You've seen utilities get out of control. I remember the first time I had a $400 water bill. I blew my mind. All right. So what are we classifying as utilities here? All of these things: water, sewer, gas, electricity, internet, which is sometimes bundled with cable, your cell phone bill, trash and recycling, security, if you have it, and pest control in some places. I'm looking at you, Florida. Pest control is basically a utility in Florida and other hot and wet climates because you just don't want bugs living in your home. Yeah, we're going to classify that as a utility here. Now, you might notice that streaming services aren't here. Cable shouldn't even be here. Okay, it shouldn't. Cable is not a utility. Being entertained by paid entertainment is not a necessity. If you are in debt and you're paying for cable, dump it now. I'm telling you right now, you're allowed to keep one streaming service active at a time. That's it. I know that's harsh. I know. But think about it. You're trying to get out of debt completely. Do you need that streaming service? You should be working as hard as you can to get out of debt. You don't have time to watch more than one streaming service. Anyway, okay, enough about that. Let's get to our point. So how do you keep these costs low? How do you know when your costs are super high? Okay. Honestly, for this one, bring your budget to the group coaching sessions or post in the Facebook group. Ask your neighbors. I see posts on neighborhood.com or our Facebook neighborhood page all the time, asking about utility costs and if they're out of whack. Some people will post water bills of like $300 a month. That's a lot. Okay. And other people will post things like, my gas bill was $450 this month. Is that normal? Did anybody else get that? Just to see, okay, what happened? Should I look further into this? Should I call the company and figure out what's going on? And during the winter in a cold climate, if your house is big and it has no insulation, that actually could be reasonable. So that's why you ask. Ask your neighbors what's normal and what isn't. People are generally willing to share and chime in. Okay, it's a good check to see if something is wrong. If your utilities are high, then it's time to cut back on some luxuries that feel normal. Okay, yes, luxuries that feel normal to you. Yep. So we're going to go into that, and it's sad. Here are some luxuries that feel normal. Doing laundry every day. Heat over 68 degrees Fahrenheit. I couldn't find the degree button. So you're going to have to deal with that asterisk. AC under 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Long showers. Keeping non-essentials plugged in. Name brand cell phone service and data. And the highest speed internet or renting a router. We actually keep our heat at about 65 or 66 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and around 63 Fahrenheit during the night in the colder months. During the warmer months, we just don't run the AC unless we absolutely need to. Now, clearly, I live in Boston, Massachusetts. It does still get to be like 95 or 100 degrees here. And then, of course, we run the AC. And we'll run it if it's over like 82, 83 degrees out. But also, I did want to mention there's this thing called a shower timer. And that's good if you have teenagers or you have like budding preteens who love to take long showers. Instead of yelling at them, install a water timer, a shower timer. It restricts the water after a certain amount of time. It's actually pretty awesome. And then they get out because there's no more water coming to them. It's not as fun anymore. So here are some common steps to save money on utilities. You can batch laundry to 1 or 2 days a week. So you have bigger loads. It actually cleans the clothes better, I heard, if you have more clothing in the washer to a point. Wear your clothes more than once before throwing them in the hamper, that sort of thing. That's what we teach our kids. Keep your heat low and your cooling high. So that means, just like I said, keep your heat to a low degree and your cooling, it'll kick on after, at a higher degree. Turn off your lights and unplug your electronics that don't need to be running. Let the light in if it's cold and keep the light out if it's hot. Switch to a low-cost cell phone service like Mint Mobile. That's what I use and it's perfect. It works just fine. And it's $15 a month. 15, not 50, 15. Or you could also negotiate or find a new internet rate. So I go to like highspeedinternet.com, something like that. And I find the lowest internet rate for high-speed internet. And most of my clients will downgrade just a little bit, save about $100 a month, and it all works perfectly well. So by the way, these are hardly all the ways that you can lower your utility bills. Right under this lesson or somewhere around here, we have a downloadable PDF after this lesson with a list of ways to lower your utility bills. Okay. I recommend looking through that list and picking out at least a few things to try out. So download it, pick a few things to try out and see what works. Okay. Now let's talk about your car. Oh, yes. Yes. Even if your car is part of your personality. I know, you know what? I grew up thinking that people's personalities match their cars. And I kind of do now, but I've settled into being a Toyota driver because I've noticed that Toyota drivers, they like to save money. And I'm now a saver, right? I had to grow from being a spender to a saver. And so I'm a Toyota driver. That's just what I am at this point. In 2021, let's start with a little bit of statistics to just blow your mind or help you feel at home. In 2021, about 35% of American adults relied on a car loan to pay for a car. The average payment was $563 per month. And just so you know, over 85 of new and used car purchases are financed. And now the average car loan length is 69 months. That's almost 6 years. And this is all, by the way, this is all according to data from the Federal Reserve and Experian. Okay. Oh, and what I didn't tell you is the average balance on a car loan is almost $20,000. Okay. So let's say that you buy an $8,000 car, which is still doable even with the car crisis. Using the average car loan, it would take you less than 15 months to save for it. So if you took that average car loan of that $563, then it would take you 15 months to save $8,000. If we use the average car loan time, 69 months, you'd be saving $30,000 and $30,402 in car payments. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Okay. If we use the average car loan time, 69 months, you'd be saving all that money. At an 8% return after 25 years invested, that is $208,000 in retirement savings. At a 10% return, which is the average for the S&P 500, you're looking at almost $330,000 in retirement savings just because you decided to go for an $8,000 car and save up for it instead of going for a $20,000 car or more and not saving up for it. Okay. That's the difference. That's the difference. $330,000 in retirement savings. That's the difference. Okay, guys, I hope I hope you're not sick of my voice yet, but that's really, I just want you to understand this, understand what you're giving away for this. Okay. So then most people come and say, well, Catherine, what are my options? What do I do then? How do I get places? And I want to say 45% of the United States has access to public transportation. It's not always good and it takes a long time, but it is better than nothing. So if you have access to public transportation, check it out, figure out how you can do it. Your other option is to carpool with a friend, a colleague, or a neighbor. Ask your neighborhood chat to see if anyone's willing to carpool. It'll probably cost you some money, but it'll also save you a ton of money. Number 3, ask to borrow a car every once in a while. 4, ride a bike or walk. It's really, you could. And maybe if you're able. And 5, ask a retired person if you can borrow and then maybe buy their older car in exchange for driving them to appointments or the grocery store or do some housework or lawn work. There are a lot of older people in a lot of different communities, and they are now limited in their mobility and limited in what they can do. I have seen over and over people asking older folks, hey, can I borrow or buy your car or like borrow your car in exchange for helping with you with some different things. And they're totally fine with it. They're okay with it. Okay. It takes a little bit of humility to do that, but I know you can do it. I know you can. That last option, okay, I know. That last one is like that option about asking the older folks. That I know that's like oddly specific. It comes from experience coaching in tough financial situations. It comes from talking to people. It comes from seeing this and working through it and thinking through options. Paying off your car loan quickly is not your only option. It's a good one. It's okay. You can pay your car loan off quickly, but it's not your only option. If your car loan is too much to handle in your budget, consider selling your car. Consider it strongly, guys. We have an extra video on how to sell your car in the bonus video section. Okay. Now let's talk about clothing. Clothing is one of the easiest budgets to get under control. It can also be one of the hardest budgets to get under control. And that's okay. That's okay. Clothing spending tends to fall into a few different categories. Clothing for growing kids. I have a couple of those myself. Clothing for growing or shrinking adults. So growing in some places or shrinking in some places. Clothing to replace worn out clothes. Spontaneous clothing purchases, fashion purchases. For kids and growing or shrinking adults, you can generally plan that out. Okay. You know, if you're trying to lose weight or if clothes are getting a bit tight, like you kind of know that. You know, if your kids are getting older and growing taller. If your professional clothes or workout clothes are wearing out, then try to plan ahead for that. And I don't mean worn out because they're out of fashion. You're going to have to ignore that for a little while if you're trying to get out of debt or put a big cap on that. Okay. Basically, for these first 3 categories here, get only what you need and get it at thrift stores, online or in person. You'd be surprised what you can find for just a few dollars. Okay. I get all of our kids' clothing at swap.com. My daughter, my oldest child now, helps me pick it out. Swap.com, if you don't know, is an online thrift store. I've also gotten my winter jacket, my weight loss clothing, maternity clothing, exercise clothes, all at swap.com or thredup.com. I've also known to pop into thrift stores and pick up like whatever we have on our clothing need, shared note on our phones. We do a lot of shared notes on our phones, my husband and I. The kids love it when I come home with another pair of pants or a new shirt for them. So like we'll have sectioned out with our names, clothing needs, and my husband's and my clothing needs are like non-existent, but because we just wear the same things. I'm not in fashion. I think you figured that out. I am not a fashion diva or like I just don't follow it. I just wear what looks good on me, and it tends to be fine. Now, if your clothing purchases are more like shopping out of boredom or to stay up with the fashion trends, or, and this is usually it, okay, to make you feel better, then we have to come up with some alternatives. Please take it to group coaching. We see this a lot and can help you find other ways to occupy your mind or use your time. But here's the bare but truth. You have to lower your clothing purchases to just what you and your family need. You have to. That's it. Just what you all need. And get it in the lowest cost way possible when you're getting out of debt. Remember, you're trying to get out of debt as quickly as possible. You're maximizing your bottom line in your bottom line budget. Not shopping for clothing or getting it in the most inexpensive way possible will help you a ton if you're used to spending a ton on clothing. Okay, I've seen clothing budgets of over $1,000 a month. I've seen clothing budgets of zero. Okay, a lot of times I'll talk to people who are trying to get out of debt and they'll take their clothing budgets from a few $100s a month to zero for a year, and their debt like flies away. So if that's you, please bring it down. So we've been talking about making big, annoying, frustrating, time-consuming changes to your life. We've been getting there. To change anything that big, you need to want to change your life. In order to change your life, you need to change your life. Let me say that again. In order to change your life, change your future, you need to change your life. Changing your numbers and your life in these major categories will change your entire bottom line, the entire bottom line, your debt payoff timeline. It'll change your debt payoff timeline, okay? If you need to really change your life, look closely at these categories, commit, do it, change your life. Your future self will thank you. And you don't have anyone else in your life who's going to love you as much as your future self, except for maybe Jesus. So go show your future self, show yourself some love and change your life so that you can change your future life. Okay. Let's review what we covered in this lesson. We covered what your housing costs should be and options for lowering your living costs. We covered ways to lower your utility bills, and we have that handout. We covered how to lower your transportation costs while getting out of debt. We covered when to buy clothes and how and when to hold off. And we covered when to make a big change to your life. Okay. And that when is when these costs are out of control. That when is when you want to get out of debt. That when is now. So here's your homework. Calculate your housing percentage. Decide how much you can afford to spend on housing. Figure that out. That number is unique to everyone. Download the ways to lower utility bills handout. Okay, do a few of the things you see on the list. Keep changing as much as you can to lower your utilities every single day. 3, think through your transportation options. Commit to a lower cost way to get around. 4, plan your clothing needs month by month. 5, decide whether you need to make a big change to your life to make a big change with your finances. This whole lesson is all about essential and fixed expenses that we have, the most essential and fixed expenses. These are the hardest expenses to change. They're emotional, they're time consuming, frustrating, and also they're worth careful examination and consideration. You should be looking at these instead of assuming that you can't change them. If you need help or you have questions, please join us in group financial coaching. We're here to help you get out of debt for good. So before you start the next lesson, you should have a few things: a plan for how you will lower your housing and utility costs, or, lower the costs, these essential costs that you need to lower. You should have a commitment on your way of transportation, whether it's the same or whether it's different. We need a commitment. And you should have a month-by-month plan for when and how you will buy clothing. All right, the next lesson is about extra income, side jobs, and side hustles. I cannot wait to see you there. I also can't wait to see you in group coaching. All right. See you later, guys. Go do your homework.